Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. September's ink comparison. Can't believe how quickly these fly around. Going to take a look at two tealish inks. So the first one by Diamine, part of their Inkvent series. This is Yuletide. That's going to go up against this one by Octopus Fluids, and it's called Petrol Axolotl. And I struggled with naming that one. One big bottle, one little bottle. Join me now down on the table. We'll take a look at the inks. We'll look at some swatches. We'll look at some chromatography. I'll do a writing sample, show you it in my Tomoe River notebook, and then I'll give you my thoughts on these. Welcome down to the table. Here's today's inks. We've got Diamine Yuletide in the 12ml Inkvent bottle. Just to show you, it's a standard ink. Very nice, very little. Nice colour though. And we've also got another nice colour. This is the Octopus Fluids Write and Draw ink, and it's Petrol Axolotl. This is a 50ml bottle. It's a round bottle, so it was a bit hard to stand. Oh, it's also vegan. Wouldn't even suggest trying to eat it, but nice to know that. Just stand that there. There is one massive difference between these two, and it's something you need to be aware of. The Yuletide, that's a dye-based ink, so it's fine for most of your pens. The Octopus, the Petrol Axolotl, is a pigment ink. Should be alright in fountain pens. I certainly would not recommend putting it in expensive or vintage pens, and even more modern pens. I wouldn't leave it in there for too long because the fact it's pigmented, so it could affect the way that your pen writes. So just be aware of that. This whole Write and Draw ink series, I believe they're all pigmented inks. Let's move these out of the way. We'll fetch in the swatch cards. So we've got on the top Diamine Yuletide, and then below that we've got the Petrol Axolotl. Very similar, very like tealy type families to me. The Yuletide tending more on the blue side, whereas the Petrol Axolotl, that's tending more on the green side. Of the two colours, I do prefer the colour of the Petrol Axolotl. Very personal choice, I like green. Let's swap these over and look at the chromatography. So on the left we've got the Yuletide, and on the right we've got the Petrol Axolotl. Very different chromatographies. So with the Yuletide we've got a massive chunk of grey. Then we've got, I want to say like a pale bluey green. Then at the top we've got loads of blue. Whereas with that Petrol Axolotl, where I drew the line, you can still see it. There's still a lot left down there. Then we've got hints of grey. Then we go into more, what I would say is more of a bluey greeny grey. I know, really good description, isn't it? And that tends to get lighter and get more hints of blue as we're going up. As I say in all these, not really sure what these show you. I just think they look pretty. Let's move that out of the way. Oxford Optic paper, 90 GSM paper, really nice, fountain pen friendly. What I'm going to be doing is doing my tests with my Serendipity dip pen. This has got a broad Yoho nib on it. There we go. Fetch in my first ink. It's in my inkstand because it's this little bottle, so Yuletide. So I'll dip the nib, give it a good drink, scribble off a little bit of the excess, and then we'll do some writing. So we've got here a Serendipity dip pen, which is broad. We've got Diamine, so I'm going to need to give it another dip. There isn't a lot of this Yuletide ink left, so it's not really getting a lot of a drink each time. So Diamine, oh, that looks very wet. I didn't scribble off enough, I think. Yuletide. We'll write our sentence. And then scribble test. You know, that flows really nicely. I'll say that first dip didn't get a lot of ink on it. What I did for the second one is I did tip the bottle slightly on its side to try and get a little bit more ink on that nib. So that's a Yuletide. Just going to step away from the desk. I'm going to clean out the pen. I'm going to pan out a nib and feed, give it a good cleaning. Then when I come back, we'll look at the other ink. Just dropping in to interrupt your regular programming. Would you like to help support the channel? If so, please consider joining as a member. As a member, you'll get early access to my videos. I normally upload them a couple of days before they go out, and as soon as they're uploaded, they'll be released to members. There'll also be a shout out at the end of the videos, and then as we get the members coming in, we'll actually chat among ourselves and work out what other perks, what other things you'd like me to add in. You know, would you like maybe a monthly live chat just for members? All down to us. So please, if you can, consider joining the channel. A link will be in the description down below. Okay, so I'm back. So I pulled out the nib and feed, gave it a good clean, dried it off with some kitchen roll. So here I'm back to do the writing with the other ink, the Petrol Axolotl. So I'm just going to move this up slightly. There you are. Here's the Petrol Axolotl. So we've got here a Serendipity dip pen with a broad nib, and we've got Octopus Fluids, Petrol Axolotl. We'll write the sentence. And we'll do a scribble test. Looking at these at the moment, they look very similar in terms of colour. Now, I haven't told you the price of these yet. So what I'm going to do is do that now. To write, I'm going to use a Marjon S5 with a medium nib. This is the pen that I've used for both these inks to test them. So with the Yuletide, I've priced these up on Cult Pens. The Yuletide for a bottle is 18 Aussie dollars for a 50ml bottle. That works out at 36 cents per milliliter. For the Petrol Axolotl, that is $28 for 50 millilitres. That works out at 56 cents per milliliter. So the Petrol Axolotl, a little bit more expensive, but it's a pigmented ink. Remember that, pigmented ink, be very careful what pen you put it in. I can't stress that enough. Let's move this to one side. Whilst that's drying, I'm going to fetch in my 52 GSM Tomoe River notebook. So you see here we've got the Moonman or Marjon S5. I don't know why I've got broad here, because it's a medium nib in everything else I've got. Diamine Yuletide. So there you can see some of the colours. Looks quite nice, flows really well. These are more tester pens, aren't they? But just so you can see there's a little bit there with drying times. Going to jump. Here we've got the Octopus Fluids Petrol Axolotl. Again with that Marjon S5. And as we go down here, we can see it seems to be a lot wetter. And I did notice that in my test I've done now. That Petrol Axolotl did seem wetter as I was writing with it. I'm going to try and get these to show side by side. And a bit difficult. I'm going to try and hide that other one so it doesn't distract. Helps for getting camera, doesn't it? So looking at them side by side, again with the Petrol Axolotl, that looks greener to me, where we've got more of a blue colour here with the Yuletide. Very difficult to compare when they're on opposite sides like this. Let's move this out of the way and we'll fetch that notepad of testing back. So what are my thoughts on these inks? I like them both. They're both really nice. The Yuletide, don't have a lot left of it now. When this has run out, I'm not intending to buy a full bottle. I've got a number of other teals which do the same as this for me. That Petrol Axolotl, very different. Love the colour. Just need to be careful of the pens I put it in. The Majohn S5, I don't care. Doesn't bother me if that one ends up being thrown out. It's not an expensive pen. I have also had it in a TWSBI Diamond 580. I limited it. It was only in there for about 3 weeks. But again, had no issues with it. Had no blockages, no flow issues. Just worked really well. But just be aware, as say, expensive pens, vintage pens, pens that are, I believe, have got these, is it SAC pens? Things like that, I'd be very careful putting it in. That's why, for the main, these cheap Chinese pens, that's what they'll be going in, because I can easily clean them out. If I can't clean them out and get them working again, I can just bin them. As I say, they're not overly expensive. I love the colour. I love the colour of both of them. I do like the more green tones here with that Petrol Axolotl. Very personal choice though. I like green. But both of them, more than happy with the colours. Price wise, again, just got to be aware of that. I know it's only 10 Aussie dollars difference in terms of price, so it's not going to break the bank, but I just like to put down the price per milliliter. And there you're talking of 20 cents extra per milliliter for that Octopus Fluid Petrol Axolotl. So they're my quick thoughts on Diamine Yuletide and Octopus Fluid Petrol Axolotl. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you got either of these inks, what do you think of them? I know this Write and Draw one, have to be careful with it being a pigmented ink, but yeah, really nice colours. Why not drop your comments down below? Let's kickstart the conversation. Please hit the thumbs up button. Every time you like, every time you comment, just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.